Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us for our book club discussion of yours truly with the amazing Abby Jimenez. You guys have been so excited, and so are we. So we won't keep you for too long, but we do want to thank everyone and welcome our new members. We hit 21,000 members a couple of days ago. So welcome. I'm Lisa Harrison, and I'm here with my co-host, Brenda. And
happy to be here.
Let's not keep the people waiting because we have been buzzing with excitement. So do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Absolutely, I would be honored to. So I'm honored tonight to introduce Abby Jimenez. She's a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author and recipient of the 2022 Minnesota Book Award for her novel Life's Too Short. She's also Food Network champion and founded Nadia Cakes out of her home kitchen in 2007. The bakery has since gone on to win numerous Food Network competitions and has amassed an international following. Abby loves a good romance, coffee, doglets, and not leaving the house. We're talking with her tonight about yours truly. Welcome, Abby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is the first, I think, book club I've done for yours truly, and my favorite thing to talk about is spoilers. So I'm just like so excited to do this today.
Oh, we really are too. Like Lisa said, there's been a great buzz about this book, and I just have to tell you how much I really enjoyed it. Lisa, hello. It delivered on.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
Went away, but I'm back. So.
Well, we're happy to have you back. But we were just starting to talk about yours truly. It just delivered for me as a reader on a number of fronts. It was, a fun romance. It was hilarious. And it shined a light on anxiety that was really relatable. And I just couldn't put it down. So I just wanted to tell you how delighted I was as a reader. Now, Abby, we'll be talking questions in a moment, but could you give a summary for those who are watching who haven't read it yet? Now, spoilers are going to be talked about after 7:15, and we'll give that spoiler warning for everybody. And if you have questions for Abby, remember, please put them in the chat. So could you give us a summary of yours truly?
Yeah, so the book opens up with our heroine, Brianna. She is 2 weeks away from her divorce being finalized. She was in a 10-year marriage and her husband cheated on her. She is very hurt and jaded and has a really hard time trusting. Obviously something like that's very traumatic. And she's sort of in a place in her life where she's in an in-between. She is living in her mom's old house and, her best friend has just moved out of town and Brianna is considering running for the chief position of the emergency department that she's a doctor at. And this new guy comes in and she finds out that they're holding off the vote for chief to let everybody get to know the new guy, Dr. Jacob Maddox, which immediately infuriates Brianna because it's like the boys club stuff that she hates. And, she's earned it. She's been there for, 10 years. And so she starts off on the wrong foot with this guy. And, Jacob is kind of going through his own stuff. He's coming out of a really tough breakup of his own. His ex is marrying his brother. And Jacob deals with a lot of generalized anxiety. He's got generalized anxiety disorder. He's an introvert, and it's really hard for him to make friends because of how introverted he is. And he's decided to leave his old hospital where his brother and his ex-girlfriend work and come to William Northwestern where Brianna is, and immediately just gets off on the wrong foot with everybody. And he's, thinking that he's never going to, make it work here. And they end up forging this really beautiful friendship. And they do it through writing letters to each other. So there's like this really wonderful back and forth with these letters. And there's some really fabulous rep in this book for anxiety. Brianna's brother, Benny, is very sick. His kidneys have failed and he's on dialysis and he's in need of a kidney transplant. And Jacob, whose own mother had a kidney transplant a couple of years earlier, has always wanted to pay it forward. So he decides he's going to donate his kidney to Brianna's brother, and he doesn't want to tell her. He's an introvert. He doesn't want that kind of attention. He doesn't want, strangers thanking him. He just wants to do this good thing and help out somebody that he's come to grow fond of at work. And she immediately finds out, and she's like, I will do anything, you need to repay you for this thing that you're doing for me. And he says, well, my ex is marrying my brother, and I actually could use somebody to pretend to be my girlfriend so my family thinks that I'm okay. And she's like, done. So it's a fake dating trope. There's some really great, kidney donation rep in the book, but it's not overly done where you feel like, you're being preached to. You'll learn a lot reading it about anxiety. You'll either see yourself in this book because you have anxiety, or you will recognize somebody that you love and understand them better because of it. I'm really proud of it. And I'm so glad that you guys are reading it.
I've got to say, we're going to dive into the anxiety of the book, because we had so many members that were so grateful that you touched on that. So we are going to get into that. But before we do, I wanted you to touch on, we'll probably do that more after spoilers. I wanted you to touch on something. So you had something exciting happen the other day, and I totally love this story. But you have had the Turkish actor Kerem Bürsin, I hope I said his name right, in mind for Jacob, and he started following you on Instagram. That's so exciting. So can you tell us how that came about in that story?
So when I was writing, this is like the behind the scenes stuff. When I was writing Yours Truly, and you'll read this at the back of the book, but in 2020, I was diagnosed with kidney disease and an autoimmune disease. Oops. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
And I had a friend, I was very in my dark place when I was writing Yours Truly. And I had a friend that was like, oh my gosh, you've got to watch these Turkish rom-coms. I'm obsessed. And so she sent me her Dropbox, and I like blazed through this show called Sen Kalkapini. And Kerem is the hero in this Turkish rom-com. A little bit about Turkish rom-coms, if you don't know, they have very strict censorship laws over there. So they can't kiss on camera. They can't really show like any sort of like, physical type of affection. So they do a really good job building tension through these little nuanced expressions and body language. And they build this wonderful angst, because every time they do kiss on screen, it's a $200,000 fine. So it's like these wonderful rom-coms, and Kerem is so good at like this beautiful vulnerability. I mean, you can even just look at one picture of his face and you can see that he's like, he feels like this very sensitive cinnamon roll type man. And I based Jacob's appearance on Kerem when I wrote the book. Like in my mind, he was Kerem playing the character from Sen Kalkapini. And so, and I always do like a little storyboard for every single one of my books. And I had like I had all these saves of, pictures of Kerem to help me, writing this book. So anyway, Bustle, Tessa Bailey was watching a Turkish rom-com. They're starting to get very popular. They're really hard to find in the United States, but all over the rest of the world, people are watching Turkish rom-coms. And Tessa Bailey went down a rabbit hole watching one. And I did a TikTok mentioning that I had based my character off of Kerem's character in Sen Kalkapini. And I ended up in Bustle magazine talking about this. And forward to like 2 days ago, Kerem's sister is reading Yours Truly. And she puts it in her stories on Instagram, and somebody messages her and goes, that's based off your brother, right? And she was like, what? Gross. And then she's like, I'm going to get to the bottom. I'm going to ask the author. Well, before she even got to me, before she even found my account, I DM'd her and I was like, so it is actually based on your brother's character. And she was like, oh my God, I'm traumatized. But like, how amazing. This book is fabulous, right? She's like, I'm so going to tell my brother. This is what she was telling me in private DMs with me and her. She's like, I'm going to tell my brother that this exists. I'm going to tell him, that you base this character off of him. So long story short, I go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. Kerem is following me. He only follows 579 people. He's got 11 million followers on Instagram, and he follows 500 people and he followed me. And he's liking all of my posts. And I've got like thousands of Kerem fans in my DMs that are like, make a movie.
Yes.
Like they want him to play Jacob in Yours Truly, and I would die. I would literally die. Like that.
Oh
That'd
my
be it for me.
God.
Nothing else. There's nothing else for me to even aspire to if this ever happened. But he is such a wonderful
It has
actor.
to happen now. Like it
It
has
has
to
to
happen now.
happen.
You
Yeah,
We're going
and
to add
today
to that
add
wave.
to it. Do the
it's all
hashtags. We want yours truly movie.
it's all over. There, it's hit the Turkish news. So I'm being tagged in Turkish news stories over on, Twitter, on X, and it's just wild. The whole thing is wild. And Karem is going through and liking all of these news stories. Like I'm down for
Oh
the
my
movie, kind of
gosh.
liking it. And Passion Flick slid into my DMs. The last 2 days have been absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Passion Flicks was
That
like,
is
they were
amazing.
like, hey, like literally Passion Flicks in my DMs. Hey, I was like, oh my God, how is this my life right now? This is too
I think they have an office here in Atlanta. We have a big Georgia film. So yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
this is so exciting.
yes. If you
I
want to
love
see
that
one
story so
picture,
much.
just Google Karemberson and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that is completely how he's like, because I did a really good job describing him in the book and how he looks. And the second you Google Karem, you're like, yep, that's Jacob.
When I saw him, I was like, he is perfect. When I first saw it, because I
Yeah.
saw your video on Instagram and I was all excited. I'm like, I'm so glad this happened right before tonight so we can get the scoop from you. And
Yes, I'm
quick
having the best
follow
week
up.
ever.
Oh God, I can't imagine. Like that's just awesome. It has to happen now. Do you have someone in mind for Brianna?
I want Melissa Barrera. I am a very big advocate for using people of color to play characters of color in books. Brianna is Salvadorian, and I want a Hispanic actress. If we ever get the movie, I want a Hispanic actress. I casted a Hispanic narrator for the audiobook, and
She was amazing.
I I love her. And also, and this isn't always possible, but I like it too when the characters when the characters are the age of the characters that they're playing. Like, I get a lot of my readers that want to fan cast my books, and they're picking people that are like 22, and it's like Brianna's 35. You know what I mean? Like, let's
Yeah.
cast actors that are mature actors that are, I mean, that 35 isn't in my mind a mature actor, but like, let's not cast,
Yeah.
20 somethings for a character who's supposed to be 35. Let's normalize having, women that are, the age of the character in the book play the character in the book.
Yes.
So yeah, I would just die. Like if Melissa Barrera, oh my gosh, I would die. I hope she's
I
seeing all
love
this.
her. I love her.
She's so talented. She's so
She's
talented.
so talented. My dear friend she teaches in Dubai. She taught Melissa in Mexico because she used to teach in Mexico. And she was one of her students before she like blew up. And I was like, that is amazing. That's a great story to tell. She would be perfect. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
she would.
We got to do
I'm
it,
I'm
guys.
manifesting. I'm manifesting right now. And I
Yes.
know she's probably got people just messaging her left and right because the news in Turkey is using an edit of Melissa Barrera and Karem as in their articles. So she's probably
Oh my
getting,
gosh.
I know she knows I exist. I know it.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
That is a great story. That is just absolutely wonderful. I will certainly add, hashtags to the effort for sure. Oh goodness. Well, we are really looking forward to getting into the kind of meat of the book. But the first thing we want to do now that it's time for spoilers. So if anybody has not read the book, you can watch us later, or you can just mute the audio. But we have a book club member who is coming on to ask you a question to kick us off tonight. And this is Amber. And she's coming on now. Hey, Amber.
Can you see me?
We
We see
see
your
your cute
photo.
picture.
Oh, here, I gotta hit start video. Sorry.
There you go.
Hey, Amber.
I just wanted to say hi. I'm Amber. It's nice to meet you, Abby.
Nice to meet you.
I do have
And we're kicking. Oh, I was just going to say we're kicking off the spoiler part with your question, Amber.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. My question is kind of at the beginning, is more of a how or when do you decide what character is going to be in your next book? For instance, when you were writing Part of Your World, did you know that Brianna was going to be the heroine of your next book?
I actually remember the moment that I decided to make Brianna the character for the next book. I remember it very specifically. I was about 20% into Part of Your World, and I just sort of stopped and I was like, it's going to be her. And the second I decided it was going to be her, I actually went back and started shaping her. Like I had to change parts that she was already in, shaping her into the character that I wanted her to be in her book. So I think I decided that she was going to be Salvadoran. If anybody's watching, I know my last name is Hispanic, but I am Sicilian, but my husband is from El Salvador. He lived in El Salvador. He's a first generation American, and I feel very close to his culture. My kids are Salvadorian. I've more than half my life I've been around his culture, and it's such a beautiful culture, and I want my daughters to see a Salvadorian woman depicted as a doctor. I wanted them to see a strong heroine played by somebody that looks like them. So I decided she was going to be Salvadorian, and I knew that I wanted her to have been cheated on, because I think that's I like to write about things that are relatable, and sadly, we've all been there. And I knew that I wanted to talk about kidney donation because I was going through my own kidney struggle at the time. So I started shaping Brianna around the story that I knew I wanted her to be in. And by the time I was done with Part of Your World, I already knew exactly what Brianna's book was going to be. So, and I do that pretty much with every book. There's always somebody that stands out to me. Incidentally, in Yours Truly, the character for my 6th book, which is called Just for the Summer, it's Justin. We just get like a tiny little cameo of him. And there wasn't really anybody in Yours Truly that like screamed to me, like, this is the hero for the next book. Sometimes it doesn't really work out that way. Like, there isn't enough page time. We had a really big cast in Yours Truly. Like we had, Jacob's big family and, all the people in the hospital. It was a very big cast. So it was kind of hard for me to, give him anybody like the best friend type spotlight that Brianna got in Part of Your World. So I decided to take like a very small minor character and then make that the next character in the next book, which is fun because it's like we're meeting a whole new group of friends. Like we really are. There's like almost like a whole brand new cast and Just for the Summer, but we get cameos from everybody. So sometimes they'll play big roles. Sometimes they'll get, it'll be a little role, but I do like to always have us meet at least one of the characters for the follow-up book in the book that we're reading.
Awesome.
Yay, that was a great question, Amber.
That's a great question.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having
joining us, Amber. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. She's the cutest.
She is. I love those mouse ears. Well, let's talk a little bit about Brianna and Jacob, because they both just brought so many things, so much baggage, so to speak, to their relationship. You can't blame her for disliking him at the beginning. I mean, the whole situation you were talking about in the summary about, him coming in and being kind of the heir apparent, when she had worked so long for it, kind of set them up for, not a successful relationship. So, but Lisa had a question, I think, about a specific part that advanced their relationship, about the letters.
Yes. So I loved that they wrote letters because I feel like it's a dying art. People are so quick to text and use emojis, and I'm still about writing cards, writing letters. So what was the inspiration for you to have them write letters in the story?
Okay. So one thing that I hear often with this book is how well the anxiety rep was done, how like they identified so deeply with Jacob. And I myself struggle with anxiety. I am a huge introvert. I know it might not seem that way, like when you meet me on book tour or, you see me on social media, but I'm a very, very huge introvert. and I don't have anxiety to the degree that Jacob does, but I deeply, deeply understand it. And I think one of the things that makes it easier for my personality to come through, being that I'm so introverted, is, the internet. Like, you can do a post on Facebook and you type it out and you write it and you can look at it before it goes out to the world, and your responses get typed and you can look at it before you respond and think about it. It's not like this quippy back and forth, that you have in person. And it just felt very natural to me that somebody like Jacob would communicate by writing. One, journaling is a skill that they teach you to deal with depression and anxiety. That's a skill that you learn in therapy, to journal. And I just felt like that would be his sort of like form of communication, given what I knew about him as a character. He would want to be able to write it down, read it over 10 times before he sends it, be really mindful and thoughtful about what he's saying. And it's so much easier than having to do that in person, where, you kind of don't know how the back and forth is going to go and you have to reply on the spot, so it's just very natural for me that he would do that. And then when I started doing the letters, I was having so much fun writing these letters, and it did sort of, there got to a point, like where, Brianna says in the book that it takes so long for the letters to go back and forth. And she just really wanted to talk to him on the phone, you know what I mean? Because the letters do take so long. So it kind of reached a point where I felt like the letter writing was becoming a little bit impractical for the plot. And I had to back off it a little bit because, we wanted that cute banter, that witty back and forth. And, with a letter, we have to wait. So, we start with the letters and then we get into like the actual meat and potatoes where these two are together and they're talking. But we circle back to the journal at the end. So you get to see what he's been saying and writing and thinking about her throughout the whole book. But yeah, that's why I came to the letter writing. And, Brianna very much recognizes Jacob's struggle and who he is as a person and what he needs to be the best version of himself. And which is why she decides to write him back. She knows that that's going to be the medium that's going to be most comfortable for him until they get to the point where, they're comfortable speaking in person. So, but I had so much fun doing those. It was so fun. And then the journaling at the end was so fun. If you've never, if you guys haven't, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, go ahead. I was just agreeing.
I was going to say, if you haven't done an audiobook, the audiobook for this is really phenomenal. It's narrated by Kyla Garcia and Zachary Weber. And at the end, and this is why I love spoiler discussion, because I could just say this. But at the end, the parts, the journal where, she's reading the journal and she's reading what Jacob has written down, Zachary narrates those parts in Kyla's chapter. So you're hearing Jacob's thoughts be narrated to you by the narrator who read for Jacob while you're in Brianna's POV. And it's so powerful and it's so well done. And you don't even expect it, you know what I mean? Because you're not in Jacob's chapter. And usually the female narrator will read, all the parts during her chapters. And so all of a sudden, just, Zachary Weber's voice breaks in and you're hearing Jacob's thoughts from this journal pouring out. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's so beautifully done. If you never listen to an audiobook, get that one.
I loved it. I did
sold.
both.
I'm going to go back and listen.
I read it and I did the audio, and the way it all came together at the end, like you said, with the journaling, it really got me. It was so good. It's one of the best audiobooks I've listened to in a long time. I absolutely loved it. So even if you've read the book, I recommend to go back and listen to it because you'll definitely get something different.
Yeah.
Just from the performances of the narrators. It was so good.
Well, and sorry, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad you mentioned how it kind of came full circle at the end to his journals, because that was one of the things that was so fascinating to me. Like, the letters were so like poignant, and even though they took too long, there was still something like really satisfying about them. They can hold the letters and they can reread them, and it was just such a nice build. And then you come to realize how important the writing part of it was to their relationship at the end. It really saved it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was awesome. Well, one thing that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Abby, that we'd like to dig a little bit further. And we had an advanced question from Shanna, who said that she really appreciated the anxiety representation in the book. that she'd love to hear more about your research process for this. Of course, you've already talked about how you have anxiety and whether it was hard to write. She said, I have friends who I think would relate to that character, and I loved it so much. And the way it was treated in a relationship was really important.
Yeah. So when I was writing Jacob, there was actually a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to hate reading his POV. Like he goes on and on and on in his head, overthinking everything and, running in circles. And that's very familiar to me. Like that thought process and, that overthinking and that sort of like rabbit hole thinking is very familiar to me as somebody who has anxiety. But I was worried that it was going to be taxing for others to read or triggering for others to read, because they have anxiety. And actually, Zachary Weber, and he said this publicly, so I'm not like telling his business. When Zachary Weber narrated for Jacob, he had a panic attack narrating Jacob because it was like, but I think he had to like put himself in that character. You know what I mean? And he said he hadn't had one in years, and like it actually triggered his anxiety reading this character. So I was really worried, like, oh my gosh, are people going to be triggered by this? And it turned out being the opposite. People found it extremely cathartic. They felt seen by it. They either recognized themselves or they recognized somebody that they loved in it. And, as far as research goes, I wrote it as I thought it should be written. And then I always have advisors and sensitivity readers for my books now. This is something that I've learned I must do with my books. And I had 3 mental health beta readers read this book to make sure that I got it right. And all 3 came back with like no notes. Like you got it. Like, you know what you're doing. And that's not always the case. So yeah, so I deeply understand anxiety. It is a very accurate representation. And not only do I want to show, the mental health rep itself, but I wanted to normalize taking medication. So Jacob takes medication and it's normalized. It's just, yep, I take it, and Brianna's like, cool, better than punching holes in walls. Like it's normalized. It's like not a big deal. I also have removed all mental health stigmatizing words from my last 2 books. And I won't be using them going forward. So words like, the characters will never say like, stop being crazy, or, oh, that's so crazy, or, oh, that's insane. Like the way that we speak in our day-to-day language that's sort of normalized. I've taken out all mental health stigmatizing words from my books. And I wanted to make sure that I included the tools for this as well. So like in Part of Your World, there's domestic violence rep, right? I wanted to make sure that somebody reading this book could be able to walk away with a roadmap on what to do if they're experiencing or witnessing domestic violence. And it's the same thing with Jacob's anxiety rep. I wanted people reading this book to take away skills that they see him using. He journals. He's got this plant room. He very much has a life conducive to calmness because he knows that he needs that. Jacob's very good at managing his own anxiety. And then, of course, he finds somebody who understands him and it makes it even better for him. But, those things are very important to me, that people would walk away feeling like they might know what to do or might know how to take care of somebody who's experiencing this if they're not experiencing it themselves.
Well, I have to say, as someone who suffers from anxiety, I could also relate to Jacob, and I thought it was so well done. And I want to thank you, we had so many members bring that up and wanted to thank you for representing it and normalizing it. So you did an awesome job there.
Absolutely.
We have an advanced question from a very special Friends in Fiction guest. Mary Kay Andrews said that she loved the book. It was one of her favorites that she read this summer. And she would like to know, how do you manage to make the fake dating trope seem so fresh and lively?
I very much want people to walk away from my books feeling like this could happen. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to feel like these are their friends, or like this is a story that a friend is telling them. And, there is no new trope in romance. There's no new trope. There never will be. Okay. They've all been done. They've been done a bazillion times before, and they'll be done again. The way that I write mine is I try and write these tropes in ways that are believable, that just feel like, something that could happen in real life. And, I actually remember calling my editor and being like, I just want you to know that like we're pretty far in already and they're still not fake dating, because the setup took so long to build up to the point where you as a reader would believe that these two were fake dating, in this manner. And it feels believable. It feels like something could happen in real life. So I had to really, really set us up. I had to, make us believe that Jacob has this stress with his family, that he needs this. I had to, create the friendship between the two of them. I had to, give Jacob enough time to come to the decision that he's going to donate a kidney. That's a huge decision. I didn't want it to be something like, I think I'm just going to donate a kidney and, make it real quick and easy. No, like I wanted him to really think about it, to, consider maybe not doing it. So that even when he decided to do it, that felt believable. So there was quite a bit of buildup that we had to go through just to get us to the point where he's asking her to do this thing and you're believing that he needs it and you're believing that she's going to do it. And, you buy into it as a reader. So, it wasn't an easy task, but I'm actually glad to hear that it felt fresh and it felt, like a new take on an old classic. Because that's what it took to get there, basically, is to just really like, make us go through these motions. So by the time these characters are in this place, we're like, yep, yeah, totally buying it. Can suspend our disbelief. I think that's the problem sometimes with the fake dating is like, you can't always suspend your disbelief. You know what I mean? I'm reading Happy Place right now with Emily Henry, and that is also a fake dating trope. And she also does a really good job suspending the disbelief. Like you believe that these two people need to do this thing that they're doing. And it's not just something surfacey and sort of a shallow reason. It's like they actually need to be doing this. If you're looking for a book rec.
We love Emily Henry. So yes, if you haven't read Happy Place, definitely pick it up. I want to point out that our members in the chat have started 2 hashtags. Hashtag make the Yours Truly movie and hashtag Yours Truly movie now. So let's do this, guys.
The campaign has begun.
The campaign has started. Oh my goodness. So I do have another advanced question, and it is from Meredith. She says, I know that you said in the back of the book that your characters come from a variety of places, but would love to know how you, or if you have any insight to share on the inspiration for Jacob's quirky family, especially Grandpa. He had me cracking up.
Sometimes characters just come to me like, and I honestly can't tell you that anybody in this book, other than, I will be honest, we'll keep this here in this little circle, but Brianna's mom is very slightly modeled after my own mother-in-law. They have some similarities. It's not her, but there's some similarities there. But other than that, everybody else was just who Jacob needed to be in his life at that time. Like when you really think about like the pecking order of Jacob's family. Okay. So we know that, his brother is this extrovert, probably easygoing extrovert, all the things that Jacob isn't, and has now run away with his ex-girlfriend. It felt very natural to me that he would have a sister who's sort of a bully. You know what I mean? Jewel is sort of his bully. And it's not personal. It's just who she is. He would get knocked around by his sisters, then we've got his sweet little sister, Jane. It just felt like this is the dynamic that would exist in this family, just like based on, the pecking order and who he, where he is in the hierarchy of, the ages of all the siblings. And then Grandpa, I don't even know how I thought about Grandpa. But he cracks me up. And also Jafar, I don't even know how I thought about Jafar either. Like sometimes these characters just pop in my head and I'm like, oh yeah, we're going with that.
We had a lot of comments about Grandpa and Jafar.
Yeah, if they make a movie, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see Grandpa and Jafar.
Oh my gosh.
And we have not seen the last of Grandpa. We won't see him for a really long time, but I think I'm going to bring him back in a future book because he's just too funny. And we haven't seen the last of Jafar either. That I can tell you definitively. We have not seen the last of Jafar because I'm working on my 7th book, which is called Remember to Forget Me. And the hero is a veterinarian. So we're going to see Jafar again. Yeah, but
Yay.
I had so
You
much
heard it
fun
here
with Jacob's
first,
Family.
folks.
You're already working on your seventh book. That's awesome.
Yeah, so usually, you're promoting one, you're, waiting for the next one that's coming out while you're writing the one that comes out after that. So I've always got my hands in several different, it's like hopscotching into like different ball pits at all times. So right now we're talking about yours truly, and I'm actively promoting just for the summer, which comes out in April of next year. And then I'm writing the book that comes out the year after that, because that has to be turned in January. So it's
Wow.
it's a process. I do one book a year.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's quite a schedule. I know we already talked about Jafar, but I did want to share something from our member Rika. She said she had been telling her husband about Jafar, and he works at he's a bookseller at Barnes and Noble, and has sold multiple copies to people looking for a rom-com, all because Rika laughed at the foul-mouthed parrot.
I love Jafar.
I know.
We did have a follow-up question from the chat. They'd like to know and then I want to pose this to our members. You can answer in the chat as well. Who was your favorite member of Jacob's family?
Gosh, it's got to be either Joy or Grandpa. Like if I had to choose, like, who am I going to hang out with? If I had to like spend a day with somebody, I think I'd want to spend it with Joy, because I think she'd be fascinating. I think I would learn a lot. She's a very intelligent, very smart woman. And also I just love talking to OBGYNs. I feel like they've seen things. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love talking to OBGYNs. They're some of my favorite people. And I feel like Grandpa would be novel, but like, he'd probably wear me down after a couple of minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, get this man with cigarettes. I can't handle this. Yeah. So I'd say
Grandpa's
probably
got the
Joy.
stories.
Yeah. He's worn down every woman in that family. That guy is smoking packs a day.
No. And then when they figure that out, oh my goodness.
So we have a lot of Joys in the chat. Joy. Anne says Jacob's dad. Joy. Yeah. Amber said Grandpa. We have a lot. Oh, Barbara says Grandpa. And then Rika says, if we're talking human, Grandpa. So she wants to hang out with Jafar. And we have a Jill. We have one Jill.
So. Yeah, Jill's pretty cool.
See, I kind of felt like it would be for me.
Jill, for you?
It'd be who?
It would be Jill, I think, for me.
I think it's Grandpa for me.
I want to go to see the animal rescue that Walter runs. That'd be fun.
Oh, yes, that would be. So, Abby,
oh, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you have an advanced question, Brenda. You wanted to ask.
I do. And I wanted to ask about your author's notes. You were very candid in your author's notes, and you mentioned it earlier, a little bit about it, but was it difficult to share your health diagnosis and your struggles in that public a way?
It was, but I was ready to do it. If I had still been dealing with it, I don't think I could have talked about it. In fact, this was this health struggle was, it went on for over a year. So I was just dealing, I think I found out about it right before Life's Too Short came out. And so much of the things in Life's Too Short, like the way that Vanessa thinks about, life being short and how to live your life, living like each day is your last, like that's very much how I felt when I found out about my diagnosis. And I remember my editor asked me, like, do you want to talk about, like when you're talking to people about Life's Too Short, do you want to talk about, your own current health issues and, how that has changed your perspective on life and how it's really like put you in the mindset of Vanessa. And I couldn't do it. I could not do it. Like I couldn't even talk, like this conversation we're having right now, I'd be in tears. Like I couldn't do it. I think I had to fully get through it, and I had to, come out on the other side and be okay, because it was so raw and so terrifying. Like it was truly terrifying. I had such a high chance of needing my own kidney transplant in the next 5 years. Like that, my numbers were astronomical. They were like through the roof. And just the fact that I went into remission the way that I did is like, it's astounding. My nephrologist was like, wow, we didn't see that coming. Like it was truly astounding. But I've had so many people reach out to me. I've had nephrologists from all over message me and tell me that they're giving this book to their patients. They love that it normalizes, home dialysis, because there's a lot of people that are afraid to do home dialysis. And, it can be life-changing, being able to have that better quality of life because you're having it more frequently and in the comfort of your home, is life-changing for people. Normalizing, donating, being a living donor. You can live your whole life with one kidney. Your body doesn't know the difference. And it makes such a huge difference to the person who receives it. And, I've had so many people thank me for that representation and for educating in a way that feels very organic. It doesn't feel like you're being preached to or, you're being taught something, but you are. So, it was really important to me that I added that. I wanted people to know like where it came from, and to also put a face to it. Like I think that it's sort of faceless sometimes. Like, you hear somebody needs a kidney and, but it's like, you don't think about the person behind it. Well, it's like, here's the person behind it. I almost needed a kidney. Like that was me. So yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do. It felt like the right thing, telling my own personal story.
That's just amazing. And I'll tell you, I don't have anybody in my family who's faced that, but it felt so real in the book. And so timeline wise, had you started yours truly when you got the diagnosis, or did that come into play during the writing?
I was in the middle of writing it. It was half and half. So let's see, my numbers started to improve in 2021. Like at around April or May of 2021 was when my numbers started to improve. And I was actively writing yours truly at that time. So by the time the book was finished and we were ready to start talking about, I think I was like in remission for like a solid 6 months when I made the decision. And I was like, okay, yeah, I am going to talk about this. I'm going to let people know. And, so much of my books, there are things, and I say this in the back of the book, but there are things about my life in all of my books. And I won't always reveal what those are, but there's a reason why some things in my books feel really authentic, because I do draw from real life. And sometimes it's not respectful for me to tell everyone where I drew this, inspiration from, or what experience I've had, because it's not always about me. Sometimes it's about somebody in my life that I've witnessed, or somebody, that I've, something I've observed. So I won't always talk about, where these things come from, but all of my books are personal to me, and they all do reflect one aspect or another of my life.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I will tell you the kidney transplant, the Benny portion of this book was amazing to me, because in the course of that story, you developed not only what it means to Benny and Brianna for that transplant, but it affected everyone in the book. Mm-hmm. And I just Lisa and I talked about this before tonight, about how you really portrayed it not just affecting him, but affecting, Jacob's family, affecting Brianna, affecting his friends, because he went into such a depression. And I don't know that there's a question in there anywhere, but I did want to mention that was striking to me in the book, and it made it feel so real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a question from the chat that goes along with that from our member Estelle. She says, I have a young adult son who had a complete health collapse around the same time as yours, I felt you truly understood both Benny and Bree in regard to Benny's illness. Did you need someone to help you understand Bree's response to Benny?
I didn't, because I saw my husband dealing with me. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
uh, like I said, I observed it. But like on the other side of it, it was very hard on him. It was hard on my whole family when I was going through it, because I was a mess, and I'm the core of my family. You know what I mean? So everybody's affected by it when somebody you love is sick. And I've actually had quite a few people tell me that it was, they saw parallels to their own experiences as a caretaker and as a family member of somebody experiencing it. You feel so helpless. There's only so much you can do. Like, you really do feel helpless. It is a mental torment. It's an emotional torment seeing somebody you love go through something like that. And it matters to so many people when you give a gift like that. It doesn't just affect the one person. It affects everybody that touches them.
Christine in the chat says, thank you for discussing organ donation and the insecurity of not knowing if the transplant will actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of comments thanking you for, yeah, it's a lot of love in the chat for you right now. Brenda, do you have another question?
I do, and this one is kind of specific, but a kind of a key pivotal moment for me in the book was when Brianna and Jacob are in the elevator and the doors open and she thinks she's okay, but bam, she sees, her ex and her friend that he cheated with, and she just goes off the deep end. Was that difficult to write?
It wasn't really. I've had more difficult scenes. If you've read The Friend Zone, it wasn't really hard to write. It kind of sucks though when you love your characters. You want them to be happy for a little while, but you got to put them through the ringer. They were so happy at that wedding, but the reality was that, Brianna did not fully unpack what happened to her. She really didn't. Like, she needed to have that, I'm not okay. I need to be made okay before I can be in a relationship kind of moment. And, fortunately, Jacob knew what to do for her, which, she needed to see inside of his soul. And he had a journal that he poured his soul into that he was able to give her. But I think she needed that, because I feel like that breakdown or that freak out moment would have come at some point, because she hadn't really worked through, like I said, she didn't really work through what happened to her. So, I kind of had to trigger her for her to go and get the closure that she needed. But yeah, it's funny because I had to talk with somebody about, the Kelly and the Nick thing. And, Nick was never meant to be with Brianna. She was obviously always meant to be with Jacob. You know what I mean? But God, she had to go through all of that to find her Jacob. Like, she had to, and that's such a tough, hard thing. But I know so many people that have gone through divorce, that have gone through really messy, really terrible divorces, that are so much happier now. Like, they are just so much happier, whether they're happier single and being alone, or they've found their Jacob. You know what I mean? And I think that's so important for people to take that away in the book. You know what I mean? Like, there is life after divorce. There is happiness after divorce, even if that happiness is being alone, which for a lot of people, that's where your happiness comes from, is being alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like, honestly,
yeah.
I think, like, if the studies are showing that in this, like, as a romance author, like, I'm so cynical actually when it comes to like marriage and relationships, but I think that, oh, my light just blew out. They're showing, like, in studies, that women are actually happier being single than they are being married and in relationships. And that's totally okay. Like, do what makes you happy. You know what I mean? If you find your Jacob, wonderful. If you don't, be happy by yourself.
Yeah.
That's so cool, because
I subscribe to that philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the same way with Jacob, because Amy was not for him, and it's clear that she wasn't for him, but he just, I guess, was thinking he was the strange one, and she was normal, which we know is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I feel it pretty tensely with them.
Amy never spoke his language. She didn't understand him. And Brianna did from the beginning. And it was like, you could just tell that they were meant to be, it was so good.
Yeah. When I'm done with the book, I sit back and I ask myself, can I picture these two being married forever? Can I picture them old and on rocking chairs on the porch and, grandkids playing at their feet or, on their, year-long European vacation? Can I envision these things? And if I can't, then I know I haven't done a job right. And I can envision these two together forever. Like I truly, truly can. I think that they're so well suited. And what's funny is like, on paper, like I feel like Jacob, especially, he didn't have self-esteem. You know what I mean? I feel like he would look at himself and think like, gosh, I have all these, I've got this anxiety. I'm not fun. I'm not good at parties. I'm not like the guy with the lampshade on his head. Like on paper, he feels like he's not worthy. And everybody swoons over this man. Like everybody, swoons over Jacob because, just because you're different doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love. You know what I mean? Just because you struggle in certain areas doesn't mean that, it's not going to work with you with somebody who gets that part of you. You know what I mean? And he really did. Like he thought that he was not good enough and really put himself down over Amy. And the reality is there was nothing wrong with either of them. Amy wasn't the villain. Yeah. And I know, like I've actually had some readers be like, oh, I hated Amy. Amy wasn't the villain. She wasn't the villain. They just weren't suited for each other. And, I think she handled things respectfully, considering, and like, even I was talking about this in my reader group, when Amy and Jeremiah got together, like, how did that go down? Right. Like I picture, 3 months after Jacob and she broke up, maybe she's at some, like maybe they all went to go get drinks because it's somebody's birthday, at the hospital, and they all go to a bar and she's sitting there chatting with Jeremiah, and they've always sort of, like they know each other. She spent the last few years going to his house and, like having dinners with his family and, with his brother. And, it's like, it just happened. And nobody was the villain here. Does it suck? Yes. But, to Jacob's point, like being upset about it isn't going to change it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that Jacob really handled it maturely. And I don't think that Amy was the bad guy. I don't think Jeremiah was the bad guy either.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I never felt like Amy was the villain. But I could see why someone would say that, but I don't think so. I didn't think she was. To switch gears a little bit, we have a little bit of a different question from the chat. Autumn would like to know if you edit while you write, or does all of the editing happen after you finish writing?
I do both. So right now I'm working on Remember to Forget Me. And, I'll go through and I'll write like a fast and dirty rough draft of a couple of chapters. And then I'll go back and I'll edit, add in little details, fix things, move things, edit, and then, keep writing. And then I'll start at the beginning again and read through and do more edits, and like, you have to remember that as you're writing, you're sort of meeting your characters and they tend to evolve as you're writing. I remember somebody telling me in Critique Circle, that's the site that I learned to write on. If you're an aspiring writer, Critique Circle is where I recommend going to learn how to fine tune your craft. And I remember somebody in there telling me that when you're done writing your book, go back to the beginning because it's not going to be the same character. It's really not. It's not. I mean, yes, they evolve and they grow as they go, but you might have changed quirks about their personalities or fine-tuned who they are as a person. And oftentimes you have to go back and you have to fix who they are in the beginning to match who they are as a person throughout the whole book. And that's very much true as I'm writing, so I'll go through and I will edit as I go through. Sometimes I will hop ahead and I'll write a chapter that's like, further down the line. But, for the most part, I start at the beginning and I write, consecutively all the way through unless I have like a really good idea and I don't want to forget it. And at which point I'll jump ahead and I'll write it. But yeah, I do edit as I go. The editing never ends. There's so much editing. like you're editing until like the bitter end. I'm still editing just for the summer. Like they just sent me my copy edits for that book, and I just turned them back in, and then I'm going to get the I'm going to get the typeset where I have to read through and make sure that every single thing is perfect because it's the last chance that I get to touch it. Like you will edit your book so many times, you're never done.
Mm-hmm.
So they physically take it from you, and they're like, you can't have this anymore.
You're like, it's done now. You're like, well, maybe one more thing.
Wait.
I do have one comment I'd like to share from the chat with you. Emily says the biggest takeaway I've had after reading all of Abby's books is to never settle and that I am worth it. Abby's writing has changed so much of how I see myself.
Oh, I love that. And you are worth it. I will tell you right now, if something happened to my husband, I would never date again unless I found somebody who met my standard, because you are better off alone than settling. You'll be miserable. You're happier by yourself.
Yep.
Love you first.
That is something I'm learning too. I subscribe to that. I'm totally single and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So
I feel
Brenda, think you had a question.
I feel like I do, but I just was going to say, I think Abby could also have been a psychologist in her in her alternate life. We did want to ask you, I know our time has just flown by. It's almost been an hour, but we wanted to ask you where our members could get signed copies of yours truly. First of all, that question one, and also if you could tell us a little about your upcoming book that's coming out in 2024.
Yes. So you can get signed copies of all of my books from Majors and Quinn in Minneapolis. They ship worldwide. And they also have signed copies of Just for the Summer. And they only have, as of today, 200 left, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's actually not a lot because they started with 3,000. So yeah, and the book doesn't come out for another 8 months. So Just for the Summer is about, well, they meet through an Am I the Asshole Reddit thread. Justin writes this Reddit thread where he is talking about how the question is, am I the asshole for naming my ugly dog after my ex-best friend? And he goes on to tell this story about how his best friend kind of screwed him over, but not really, they're still friends. And, he says, I have this thing where every girl that I date and, break up with, she goes on to find her soulmate. Well, this girl I was dating, ended up, we broke up and she went on to date my roommate, Brad, and Brad ends up like wanting to move out with her. And he stiffed me on the last 7 months of the lease. And now I'm stuck with like this huge, rent payment that I have to pay. So I went and I got a really ugly dog and I named him Brad. So that, the ugliest dog in the universe is named after my ex-best friend. So anyway, what everybody took away from this Reddit thread is that everyone that Justin dates and breaks up with goes on to find their soulmate. Well, the heroine of the book, Emma, everybody that she dates and breaks up with also goes on to find their soulmate. So they get the idea that if they date each other, they'll break this curse if they break up. So she's a travel nurse and neither of them is taking it very seriously. And she's like, I'll just go and I'll take a, little 6-week, stint at William Northwestern. And, I'll date Justin for 6 weeks and we'll break up and we'll both go on and find our happy ever afters. It's so fun. But when they meet, they actually really do like each other. The only problem is that Justin is about to become the guardian of his 3 younger siblings. And Emma is very much a wanderlust, never settles down, doesn't get attached to anything or anybody. She has an avoidant attachment personality and dating style. So, they're not super compatible. So you have to read it to figure out what happens. But it is up for pre-order and there are signed copies at Majors and Quinn. The link is in my bio on all my social media. And I want to say it's going to hit NetGalley soon. So fingers crossed we're going to put it there. Yeah.
So guys, go out and pre-order Just for the Summer and it will be out April 2nd of next year. Wow. That seems so far away, but it really isn't.
It's really not. Oh, can't wait though. That sounds really fun. It's going to be an awesome read. Well, Abby, we can't thank you enough for being with us tonight. It's been such a pleasure, and I love yours truly. Oh, I got to turn myself around. Love the book, and so thankful that you went with that. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I love talking spoilers.
Oh,
and if you don't follow me
it.
already, come join my reader group, because I have a spoiler discussion group for all my books where I answer questions.
And where is that located?
On Facebook. I've got a main group, which is the Abby Jimenez discussion group. And then in the main group, you can find the links to all the other groups. Every single book that I write has a separate spoiler discussion group. So as you're reading the book, join the group and chat about spoilers and go read about all the little behind the scenes stuff. I love Easter eggs. I like to plant a lot of Easter eggs in my book and bring back, previous characters and things like that are fun to find. So yeah, go join especially my main reader group, because they get a lot of perks in there.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. That sounds, I'll definitely be joining.
Yeah, everyone
Thank
go
you
join.
so much.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank
Abby.
You for having
this has
me.
been a wonderful night.
It has been. Thanks so much. Take
Thank
care.
You. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What a night. Oh my gosh.
I know. How awesome is that?
My heart is full. Like, I loved her before, and I have a new girl crush. Like, she's amazing. What a great,
in addition to your new favorite book boyfriend.
I know. I have all kinds of emotions. I have a new book boyfriend. I have a new girl crush. I don't know what's happening over here. But we have
you pull
a lot
yourself
going
together,
on.
Lisa, enough to tell everybody about what's coming up?
We have things coming up.
Yes, we do.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
My brain.
That's funny.
Oh, goodness. So, yes, we do have a lot coming up. On Thursday night of this week, September 21st, Brenda and I are hosting a session at the Epigraph Literary Festival, which is virtual. It's completely free. And we're hosting a session that will be talking about holiday books. And we have Mary Kay Andrews as our special guest. And we'll have another author that will be popping in to speak with us too, but we'll share that later. So definitely you can go to epigraphliteraryfestival.com and you can register for that, and it's free, and you should join us. The session will be at 6:00 Eastern Time on Thursday. And then next week on September 28th, we will be hosting an exclusive Zibby Books preview party at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and that will be right here on our page live, just like our book club discussions. You want to tell them what else we got going on?
I sure do, if I can manage to work my screen. I got the preview party up.
Oh, well, I'll keep going. I can keep going.
No, okay.
Because you got the tech going on. So then October, our book club discussion will be of The Followers by Brady Godfrey. And that is going to be on October 16th at 7 p.m. right here live on the page. And there's our lovely graphic. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm. I love the cover of The Follower. It's so cool.
I love that cover. That book, I can't wait to dive in. I always wait till right before. And then we've got well, I can't see it, but our next thing is November 20th.
I will reshare it, because we definitely want to put that one up.
Well, before that,
There we
on
go. How
November
about that?
16th, we have Friendsgiving. So that will be at 7:30 p.m. And that is our annual Zoom party where we all see each other. We share recipes. It's very happy community, get to know members. It's one of our favorite things. It's not recorded, so you never know what might fly. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
And
right. That's
then
right.
on November 20th, we have the amazing Mary Kay Andrews will be discussing her book, Bright Lights, Big Christmas, which has already received so much advance praise. If you have not ordered it yet, you can pre-order it now. It comes out on September 26th, and Mary Kay is headed out for a huge book tour. So you can check out her website, marykayandrews.com, and see where she is going, because she is more than likely coming somewhere close to you. And if you have the chance to meet her, you want to, because she's hilarious. Then on November 30th at 7:30, we have a happy hour with a guy named Ron Block, who I'm sure nobody knows, but he's an amazing librarian and the Friends in Fiction podcast host, as well as a special guest that he does not know who it is. And that will be part of the fun. And bringing up the rear in December 18th, we have Christmas Presents with Lisa Unger at 7 p.m. I am so excited about this. I've never done a thriller Christmas before, but I think
I
this
haven't
is going to
either,
be
but I'm
great.
still excited.
So definitely save the date for that. So as you can see, we have a lot of great events coming up for the rest of the year, and we are just so excited about that. We also want to welcome all of our new members, and thank you so much for being here. For those of you that don't know, we're also on YouTube. You can watch all of our back episodes on YouTube, and you can follow us on Instagram at Friends and Fiction Book Club. You can follow Brenda by the book, and you can follow me at Lisa Gets Lit, and keep up with all of our shenanigans and all of our book chats and all of our fun. So stick with us.
It's quite a wrap up, Lisa. Great job.
I know. I've just been wrapping it all out.
That was a lot of dates, but oh, what a great evening.
I know. I wish we could have asked her what she was reading. We ran out of time.
I know. And what her favorite audiobooks are, because, we were curious about that too. And when we were talking about this, so maybe she'll respond to someone in the chat about that. But hope everyone has
that she listened to her own audiobook. I love that she listened to her own.
Yeah.
Some authors, I don't know, some do and some don't, but yeah, I think that was pretty cool. What a great night.
It was. Thank everybody who stayed with us and who watched tonight. We love providing this to you, and you can go back, as Lisa said, and watch previous episodes. So we hope you have a wonderful evening and happy reading.
We'll see you Thursday night at Lipograph if you register. PB&J out.